Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Yakuza 5 EX Hard difficulty walkthrough. This is the final part of Beyond the Dream from Part 3, Chapter 4. And we're playing as Akiyama, and this is actually a really great part of the mission. This is nothing but back-to-back fights, and I really appreciate that, because that's why I come here to play. And immediately you're in a big crowded room in what you could call the typical Yakuza encounter, where they put you in a small room against a ton of dudes, and it kind of feels like a clusterfuck, but you can make it work. And the strategy here should always be the same. When you have heat, try to run at a group of enemies where there's more than two of them, and do the triangle running attack to hit them all with the running heat move. But as per usual, it's way harder to do than it needs to be because of the detection system that this game implements, and you'll often get heat moves you don't want, you'll often completely just fluff it and it'll get nothing and you'll end up getting beaten up for it. There are a lot of repercussions to your actions in these games, and they all stem from a level of impreciseness which I wish didn't exist, but it does, and you have to deal with it. But the cool part is, regardless of what you do, it's still pretty fun. Unless you're going for no damage, and then you'll hate the game forever, because there's way too much bullshit that can interrupt that kind of play. In the last video, I was sharing some opinions on Star Ocean because it came out the other day, and I beat it, and I'm very upset with that game. I feel completely betrayed, and no one is more sad than I am, guys. I take no pleasure in shitting on games that I want to love, but there is nothing redeemable about that game, and everything that's redeemable about it they ripped from 4, and that's why I can't be complimentary about it. But I can say that there are a few sections that contradict that feeling, and I want to speak about those because it's easy to say this is bad and here's why. Sometimes it can be more challenging for me to pick out something that shines through the shit, because I like to analyse where things don't work as well, and I like to postulate on how we fix them as we move into one of these sections where it's one of those big long battles, and they're really fun. So just do the moves that I've been doing with Akiyama, take people out, be careful of the running knee. That was a failed running triple attack, happens all the time. You'll get the knee if you mess it up, and just be aware that when you have the script on the bottom of the screen, I don't think you can do heat actions because I think it deactivates the trigger for those, so just be careful. But get your heat back, kick some ass. You'll notice that I've drank some alcohol. Akiyama is more powerful when he's drunk. He also gets access to drunken moves, which essentially it's one heat action, I think, from a certain distance, but every little helps, so always bring alcohol with Akiyama, it really helps him. And I'm just going to be kicking and utilising the dodge that Akiyama has, because you're able to dodge out of any combo at any moment of the attack, and it's absolutely amazing. Every character should have it. It should be a fundamental, it should not be a skill unique to this guy. I love it, but that's just me. It costs heat to do that shit with some of the other people, I hate it. But Akiyama is a boss, so exploit that. So in Star Ocean, there are two specific things that really stood out to me as being really enjoyable. The first one is the role system, and the role system I didn't really understand at first. I didn't really understand the need for it or the benefit in it. And essentially, you can choose styles that will augment your character in a certain way, and you level them up by wearing them or by putting SP into them. And they will evolve, and as they evolve they'll unlock other styles. And I played about 90% of the game only realising you could equip one, because I'm an idiot like that. And I just, my main character had maxed out damage, so he had plus 20% damage. My tank had plus 50% HP. My mage had plus 50% MP. I kind of went pretty standard with that, and then I realised, of course, that you can put a dozen on. I'm like, Jesus, this just got way better. And I realised that a lot of the encounters that I'd had trouble with where my team were dying, and I'm like, wow, this is tricky, this is a difficulty jump. If I'd have known how to use the role system from the beginning and not being a clown, I would have probably had no difficulties, because I had too many roles to choose from. They were all really good and really high level, and I didn't have them on. And the moment I put them all on my characters, the difference in the gameplay from that point onwards was astounding. I was steamrolling things, and it opened up so many interesting ways, because the roles not only give you benefits, but they also give the character who you're not playing as behavioural traits that they can do. Sometimes they'll guard more, sometimes they'll do more strong attacks, sometimes they'll keep to the edge and they'll counterpunch. It gives them these tendencies that make them a little bit more reliable, because it has to be said, the AI in Star Ocean 5 is the worst I've ever seen it. It is beyond terrible. You have to be micromanaging everybody, and on the harder difficulties that's literally what you'll have to do, because if your healers are not on the ball and they're not set up correctly, you're going to get stomped. And I mean really stomped, because you die super fast in Star Ocean, it's kind of stupid. But the rolls went from being this kind of, extra superfluous sundry bonus to, wow, I'm going to swap these rolls before I fight things, so that I'm kitted out to have this advantage against them. So I got to the point where, before I saw an enemy, I was in the menu eating some food to boost my damage, and immediately swapping rolls so that I had my 30% bonus damage against whatever enemy type it was, and it added this extra dimension of strategy, which is great, but it should have been in a different game, because this game doesn't deserve it. If it was in 4, it'd be awesome, but I don't think anything like this kind of was. There was the skill system where you could get, like ornithology and entomology and all those other ones, but they were just for the purposes of drops, and they're in this game, but they're assessed to something called Specialties, which I'm going to discuss next. But it's this system that's kind of interesting, and it's as dynamic as you want it to be. You don't even have to touch it if you don't want to, just get a bunch of stat boosts and leave it. Or if you want to be more involved, get in that menu and optimize your character and constantly be managing them and have those advantages. That is a great touch. I really appreciated it. It'd be nice if you could get in that menu while you're fighting, but of course you can't because there are rules. But still, it's something interesting, and it elevates the combat mechanics, which were already great, because all they are is an evolution from the first few games, extended, and now we have these new features that are compounding them and creating that added depth, the thing that makes Star Ocean so great. And even as much as I hate the 5th game, the combat's still great, it's still stellar, it still carries all the things that made the previous combat systems great, and it adds a few things to them. So even at that game's just worst moments, it still has one of the better RPG action systems that you can play. And that's the only saving grace. And once again, it is a saving grace of a mechanic that was in the game before it. So this has nothing to do with 5 and everything to do with Star Ocean as a series. The only redeeming feature is the fact that 4 games exist before this that were superior games. And that to me is baffling. The second thing I love though, that I think is really interesting, is the specialty system. All this is a slight change on something that was already part of the game. It's called something different rather than being inside the skills and equipping them to characters. These are abilities that can be equipped passively and can be unlocked by doing certain things in the world. And it's everything from get increased drops to unlock chests, to do smithing, to do crafting, to do alchemy, to even using the ocarina, which Star Ocean 4 fans will remember when you were trying to farm certain enemies in certain areas, or in the Wandering Dungeon, for instance, to get those fucking runes that opened up certain doors when you had to use those stones. What a horrible level that was. Everybody wished for the boss rush, didn't they? But you never got it. Goddamn Wandering Dungeon trash. But it's just... It's an interesting way of making SP matter in a way that's familiar, yet slightly different. And the biggest criticism of it is you can play the entire game without discovering a bunch of it if you don't do quests for Welch. But if you're playing Star Ocean and you recognise the name Welch, why aren't you doing those quests is the counter-argument, I suppose. But I don't like the idea of missing key abilities just because I didn't do some kind of tertiary action, which is a little bit sad. But that is an interesting twist on pre-existing design, which I did enjoy, and I grew to really focus on and level it up as quickly as I could. Fiori's ass is also top tier when considered all the sins of this game. Like, her ass is ridiculous. There's more effort put into sculpting that perfect Glutamus Maximus than there is anything else. It's like that is where all the budget went, on making that skirt just short enough to completely accentuate the curves of her voluptuous bottom. And as much as I really, really, really appreciate that, it doesn't make a game. So that's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, yeah, I would let her use my face as a bicycle seat for a marathon. And that's about it, guys. That's about all the qualities that game has. I'm not going to talk about the rush system because they've brutalised it. They've completely made it shitty and pointless and took away the accessibility and the combo ability and the feeling of empowerment that came with it. So now you just have these god moves that make you invincible, and you do this massive AoE that's difficult to aim because it's autonomous. And it's just terrible. And then when you die, it swaps it to somebody else, and if you don't realise it swapped it and you didn't read the tutorial on how to swap it back, you end up doing the wrong move when you needed to do a different move. And then there's all the boss fights that need you to stand around like a twat for 10 minutes while dialogue happens so you can stop the boss from being invincible and actually do something. And at that point, if you've not realised that that's how the fight works, you've wasted all your MP. So yeah, thanks for the heads up there, Tri-Ace. Great design. It's preposterous. Unlike this fight, which is amazing, because all I'm doing is kicking furniture and it's kicking ass. That's one of my favourite rooms in the game, because you can literally use the office supplies to kill everybody in it, and that's wonderful design in my opinion, but... I think somebody's alive here. Or maybe I'm going through the wrong door? Oh yeah, the table thing wouldn't let me go through the door. But another big fight, so do the triple off the bat, get rid of a few of them. This music's so good, I love the Victory Road music. It gets you pumped to do some fighting in a game. I like that. I like any music that's really fitting. It's one of my favourite things about Fury, actually, is the fact that when you hear the music, you want to start kicking ass, and I like that. I also discovered the other day that Motoi Sakuraba, the guy who does the music for the Soul series, does the music for Star Ocean. And I didn't know that, because I've always felt that the music for Star Ocean is shit. So imagine my surprise when I give literally zero props to Star Ocean 5 soundtrack and realise it's done by one of the more talented musicians in the games industry. I was thoroughly stunned, because if you would have told me that was done by the same guy, I would have laughed in your face, and I would have compared Sakuraba, to something like Beethoven, and I would have compared the music in Star Ocean 5 to the Cheeky Girls, which is not good old Beethoven. Which is his name, Ludwig von Beethoven? I always forget, I don't know why. Because it's Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, isn't it? They've all got great names, you notice that? You cannot be good at music and influential to your century unless you have some crazy triple banger awesome name. I miss that. Nobody's going like, oh, Chad Kroger. Can you imagine in 100 years when people are talking about Chad Kroger the way we talk about fucking... Is it Sebastian Bach? That is crazy. And one second. It's Johann, is it? Johann Sebastian Bach. So again, triple banger, cool name. Maybe we'll call him something different in the future. Maybe it'll be like, I don't know, Academia Posthumerus Chad Kroger. Also, oh, speaking of, Victory Road. You get to kick this dude in the face repeatedly until he blocks. Always fun. That move is so good, dude. Then you grab him and then you kick him in the face. Love it. Wonder what we'd call him. Curlimus Most Douchimus Chad Kroger. I don't know. It'll probably be some great name that he's undeserving of. Asmodeus, Israel, Ishmael, Ahab, Chad Kroger. Some crazy like Enochian, Isaac, Chad Kroger. I don't know. Maybe you've changed your name when you get older. Like how Madonna started talking in that ridiculous English accent, even though we know she's not from England. A lot of bands do that. I've never got it, but it is kind of funny. So maybe they do that. And I say all these names like Bach and Mozart, like everybody talks about them every day. It'd be nice if they did, because that is music that's inspired generations. And nowadays, people, when you say music that inspires generations, they think shit like ABBA. And there's nothing wrong with ABBA. I love me some ABBA, don't get me wrong. But it just feels like it's a different tier, doesn't it? It's a different class completely when you compare popular culture to music that has shaped man's landscape. Well, Street Fight, Hardcore Holy Rules. Here we go. That WCW title anywhere. Everybody remembers those classic moments. So we're running towards the pink triangle as usual, and I'm kind of condemning Star Ocean 5 for being a shitty game. I went over to GameFAQs because I was interested to see what the people were saying, and by people I mean crazy people, because let's face it, the only people on GameFAQs are the people reading it for laughs, and then the psychopaths who post. And you might post on GameFAQs and you might not be a psychopath, but I mean those psychos who do nothing but argue all day on GameFAQs and literally just exist to post shit on there. And there's about 50% of them are just straight trolls, and the other 50% are just the deluded, arrogant people. And it's always a culmination of just craziness. I don't post on GameFAQs. I haven't got the stomach for it. I don't care enough about bullshit to do so, but I always feel for the people who do. Like, there are a lot of people who try to post productive things on GameFAQs, and they often get swallowed in just the trudgery of memes and mockery and just a general poor taste of interactions with other human beings from people who've been on the dark part of the internet for far too long. But the opinions on there are really mixed, but the ones I'm particularly enjoying are the ones who are defending the game. Because if you've listened to these last two videos of me kicking ass with Akiyama and dancing people's faces off with Haruka, you will have heard that I do not have very good things to say about Star Ocean 5 outside of a couple of mechanics, inherited mechanics, and the delicious ass of a certain character. That is it. That is all the good things I've had to say. Everything else is profoundly bad, beyond bad. You'll not hear a good word from me. Once again, though, guys, these are all opinions, and everybody's is different, just like anything else. So the people on there who've been writing these counter-arguments for why the game is great and why it shouldn't be getting bad reviews is just kind of amazing to me. Because there are the people who legitimately love RPGs and are giving Star Ocean a chance and are finding a lot of nostalgia and fun from the old school mechanics of it, which that is a legitimate quality of this game. There is an old school charm to it, but unfortunately, the moment you start dwelling in that old school charm and enjoying yourself, the game does something draconianly bullshit and it pisses you off. Numerous times, I got fucked by the game just as I started enjoying it. One of them was beautiful because it was of my own making. I got to an area where we were taking on dinosaurs, or Dinosaurus as it's called, which is a dragon enemy, but it's called a dinosaur for whatever reason, and it has a rare drop of Meteorite. Meteorite is the second tier crafting component for the most powerful weapons. You can craft a tier 8 weapon or tier 7 using Meteorite. The next tier up is the best weapons in the game outside of augmentation, and they need Orichalcum, which you can only get in post-game dungeons, which I think is stupid, but it's true. So Meteorite, very precious commodity. I wanted to get some powerful weapons before the end of the game. If I see a second to top tier crafting component and all I need is Meteorite, I'm going to get that Meteorite because I understand how this shit works. I want a good sword. And I got enough off that first battle with the dragons, and I crafted the sword for Fidel, put it on him. It gave me a 560 damage increase instantly. No augmentation, no crafting needed. I essentially doubled my attack just by popping it on. That's how powerful it was for the time, and that was awesome. And then I noticed 2 other characters could have it too, so I'm thinking to myself, I can shitfist the rest of this game if I get these items, so I'm going to do that. So I end up fighting a few more of these dinosaurs, and then I couldn't find any, and then I noticed one that was with one of those phoenix creatures, and I was like, oh, it's pretty dangerous, but we should be okay, because I was quite strong at that point. So I ran up to them, killed them all, and then I used the ocarina to bring them back, and for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because they preempted me, or whatever happened, but the second I brought them back, they were on top of my team, and everybody died. Everybody died. And in Star Ocean, when you're the only person alive, everybody's dead, and there's a bunch of really aggressive enemies trying to kill you, you can't really do much. You go into the menu to use an item to revive somebody, you or they will die before you finish doing whatever it is you're doing. It's very rare that they get up and immediately heal themselves and everything's fine, because you're too busy getting gangbanged by everybody else. A bit like what's happening here. Only nowhere near as cool because I'm going to win this. So immediately, I know I'm going to die because I've done a mistake by not being prepared for whatever just happened, and I have to face the fact I've not saved in an hour and a half. And you might be thinking, well, that's your fault, Chris, because you didn't save. The game gave me an opportunity to save, and the times when it did, it turned the save point off. So not only did the game turn the save point off, but I get fucked by essentially trying to farm an enemy I've been thrashing the entire time. It gets this lucky opening attack that fucks up everybody, including my healers. One of them had 27,000 life. Figure that one out, I can't do it. The best armor that I could get at that point still got fucked somehow. They just trashed us. And I lost all that progress. Just as I was thinking to myself, I kind of like this game now, because I'm at a point where I'm doing all the shit I did in 4, and I can ignore all the shit this game does poorly. And then that happened, and it's just like, fuck this game. There's no excuse in today's day and age why when you die in an RPG, there's no option to say continue. It doesn't make sense. Why would a game willfully turn off a save point when you haven't saved in 2 hours? It's just grim, and there's no excusing it. And I can name several moments in this game where this happened. A previous sequence, you go to a place just after this called like Sigil Basilica or something. It's this snowy temple. You do all the temple, you get to a save point, you go through the room to rescue one of those little fucking children that nobody cares about because the story's trash, and you do a big fight against a bunch of people. They wear your team down, they break your rush reserves, you use your rush reserves or whatever you do, because there's a dude on a balcony firing magic and it does massive damage and you can't attack him because you've got to kill all the flunkies because this is an RPG, it makes no sense. Kill that dude, watch a bunch of boring cutscenes that you can't skip because this game's stupid. Then you're in an inn and you have to go outside. But the save point won't work, and you're like, well, what's this bullshit? Then you go outside and there's a fight. You're like, oh, I've got to do this fight, then I can save. You do the fight, then another guy spawns. You can't go in the inn because it's locked you out, so you can't go in and save, so there's no saving between the previous encounter, boss-esque area, and this particular one, and then you go around the corner and you fight a boss who is a humanoid, who is a complete bitch for 60% of the fight, and then he starts doing an AoE move that juggles you. And it juggles you for about 10 to 15,000 life. And that's about as much as everybody has at that point, unless you've got some ridiculous moves. And even if they do, they didn't put this boss on his own. They put him with a bunch of lackeys who can also do attacks while you're being juggled. So it goes from you shitting on him for the entire fight to you are dead and your entire team is dead, and then when you reload, before you've fought the other section, before those 10 to 15 minutes worth of dialogue that's tepid, terrible, almost painful on the ears and terrible to read, and then you have to fight all that shit again to fight a boss who can, if he chooses to, because there's no signposting for when he jumps up, it's almost impossible to get away from if you're close, and you're going to be close because it's Star Ocean, you're spamming your moves, you're killing things. And then boom, you get stun locked, you die. And it's just, once again, fuck this game.